Good evening, I'm Enarita Lore and welcome to Churikua. Tonight, in our third compilation from our third season, you will listen to the legends of Mulatta from Cordoba, the Light of Yara, the Bell Witch, and the Deacon from Myrká. And remember that the night awaits for you. There is no doubt that there are stories that linger in our minds and are destined to stand the test of time. I remember that ever since I was a little girl, here in Cordoba, a small but welcoming place here in Villarrica de la Veracruz, there was a beautiful mulatta named Soledad that had just arrived to Cordoba. She was friendly, sweet, and unassuming with a beautiful smile. She never spoke of her past beyond the obvious, that she was a mulatta, that her father was Spanish, and her mother a black woman who knew about remedies and herbal medicine from these lands and from those of her origins. Whenever someone fell ill, they would turn to her, and with a big smile, she would help anyone in need with her remedies. It was no surprise that many men were captivated by her beauty and charm. I remember that even when I was little, shortly after Soledad arrived, I was one of the first people she treated. My mother asked her to help me with my illness. She simply touched me to see if I had a fever, asked about my condition and symptoms, and in addition to bringing damp clothes to cool me down, she left and returned with remedies already prepared, including potions, and restored my health in just a few days. We all said that whoever married her would be lucky. Unfortunately, among all the men who declared their love for her, there was not a single one she accepted. She was always devoted to her remedies, to her own work, and true to the meaning of her name, Soledad. Moreover, it seemed that this gift of knowledge to heal others had bestowed upon her another virtue, that of looking radiant, young, and beautiful even as years passed. My life took its obvious course. I grew up, got married, and had children who grew up quickly. Like many of us, we turned to her, and she was always looked just as young as she did the day she arrived. Even our major, Martin de Ocaña, went so far as to ask for help. Shortly after, he brought her gifts, visited her, and sought her out, but overnight the Inquisition came looking for her, accusing her of witchcraft. It was said that she had used her knowledge to her advantage and made him fall in love with her. It was said that it was only a matter of time before the wrong kind of people looked ashamed to her. She never responded positively to their advances, since he, like so many others, was captivated by her beauty, both inside and out, and declared his love for her, but she, true to herself, rejected him. Many of us supported her, but we couldn't do much for fear of reprisals. Many of us supported her, but we couldn't do much for fear of reprisals. Yet she, with a smile on her face, told us she would be fine, that in time she would be free. We remained worried about her, and even more so when they accused her of witchcraft and sentenced her to prison in San Juan de Ulua. We prayed for her. for her well-being and to see her again, at least one last time. One day, a few months after they took her away, some merchants came from the port with a story so impossible that it didn't take long for it to spread. According to the story, the Inquisition sentenced a beautiful mulatta to be burned at the stake for witchcraft. They set a specific date for the execution. However, instead of giving up or weeping, she used a piece of charcoal to draw a shape. A work of art so beautiful that it made the local jailers want to see it. When it was finally finished, a couple of jailers approached and she asked them, "Gentlemen, I see you are enjoying what you see. Could you tell me what this ship is missing?" "That it sails." Having said that, with a wave of her hand, she stepped into the wall and boarded it. The ship began to move, sailing until it reached the window, where it could be seen on the horizon, sailing on, and Soledad waving goodbye. Just once, in a dream, I saw her, along with all of us who had come to her, a ship lost in the undergrowth, she at a distance. "I told you I would manage to be free. I thank you all. It is time for me to leave. I will always carry you in my heart." And with these words, she boarded the ship once more, which vanished into the underworld to leave these lands never to return, thus enjoying her freedom. At Way, the great hero warned us about those men who enslaved us. "They took our lands from us. We didn't think they were so powerful. At least we're left with the satisfaction of knowing that we stood up to them and fought as hard as our strength allowed." My grandmother, may she rest in peace, told me that when she was little, she had a sister named Yara. She was very pretty, kind, and naturally wary of strangers. Thought you never know when things might change. One day, Yara went out in search of the healer. Since my grandmother was very ill, the healer agreed to come as soon as she gathered her herbs. But she didn't count on a group of Spaniards seeing her, and upon seeing her beauty and virginity, taking her prisoner with the intention of offering her to their chief as a slave. Knowing what would happen to her, she was terrified, her heart pounding like a drum. Once she saw the chief, she noticed he was carrying his sword, and she let him lead her to his chambers, remaining docile until the moment came, a chance, when she seized the man's sword and wounded him with it. As the man fell to the ground, bearing a deep gash inflicted by Yara with his own blade, she began to run, flee, with all her might. She found herself pulled by those men, some on foot, some on horseback, hunting her down as if she were a wild animal. Of course, her goal now was revenge, to avenge their fallen chief. That was their priority. She reached the foot of a church. It was well known that, as a house of God, the priest was obligated to provide shelter and asylum to anyone who requested. But, to her misfortune, they demanded her, and the priest accepted her pursuer's request instead of granting her asylum. They dragged her away by force. Far from the church, night had fallen, and now they demanded to finish her off. Tears fell as she saw herself defeated, knowing that her freedom, in every sense, would come to an end. As she stood near the spot Chief Atway had been executed, a light appeared in the sky. It seemed to be coming from the mountains at full speed. The light began to disorient the men standing guard around her, settling upon Yara. Those flames that had been glowing just moments before in a somewhat iridescent yellow descended, and she threw herself into it. The flames consumed her body, turning them blue, and little by little her body became a mere memory. This light, the light of Yara, rose towards the sky. The Spaniards, incredulous and disoriented, ended up wandering aimlessly until dawn. Yara, now transformed into light, joined that struggle, the power of our land, our blood, our heritage, uniting with Atway in this fight. And it was very likely he who came to offer her a final glimmer of hope against her terrible fate. Since then, lights have been seen at night coming from the mountains, thought they do us no harm. Indeed, they are incapable of harming even the most fearsome of creatures. They disoriented anyone who finds themselves in their path. There is no doubt that their spirit, having endured for so long, will surely continue beyond our existence. For those future generations who will remain on these lands, who will claim the freedom for which we have now fought and longed so much. Have you ever wondered if the mistakes or wrongdoings of our ancestors can affect us or even haunt us for generations? Any of us could think that such things should remain, to a certain extent, with those who were grounded and only with them, until they are dead and nothing more. However, there is my family that, even as the years go by, continues to be affected by a curse, a witch who has taken root in my family, wreaking havoc on all of us, even to this day. I am one of the many descendants of the Bell family,
We continue to live here in Adams, Tennessee. I'm sure you have heard of my family and the entities that have been attacking us ever since. Some time ago, more precisely, my grandfather found a notebook. It tells a story about how John Bell, my ancestor, was a simple man, devoted to farming the land and his family. Everything was routine along with the difficulties and problems that any family faces. Until one day, things began to change. John saw an animal in the field, which he initially thought was a dog, but upon closer inspection, it had a head like a rabbit, a creature whose very presence signaled a change in the family life, a change in the family's fate. One of John's sons, Jerry, saw a bird take flight. He assumed it was a turkey, but when he shot and it flew away, he realized it was even larger than he had thought, soaring with agility and skill as it flew off into the distance. A short time later, Betsy saw a girl dressed in green, swinging from a tree. There was something strange in her gaze, a mocking laugh and taunting look. As Betsy approached, the girl simply vanished like smoke. From then on, poor Betsy was the one who suffered the most from what would happen later. While they slept, this spirit would pull their blankets off, scratch her, slap her, push her, and even stick needles or pins invisibly into her. Apparently, although the other family members suffered as well, Betsy and John were its favorites. Betsy and John were her favorites. Poor John already in poor health, until Kate, the spirit, claimed to be a witch, would not stop until she had finished off old Jack Bell, as she used to call him. One day, John could no longer get out of bed. He wouldn't wake up. The family was devastated, and as soon as he passed away, the entity made itself known, declaring and celebrating that it had achieved its goal. The family had found a jar. No one recognized it, and the liquid inside was said to be poison, with which it had accomplished its objective. They opened the jar, gave it to the cat, and when they realized the poor animal had followed in John's footsteps, they confirmed their suspicions, throwing it into the fire, where it burst into blue flames and shot up the chimney. The worst part was that this manifestation didn't take long to appear. It even began singing tavern songs at the funeral, celebrating the misdeed in grand style and terrifying and unsettling everyone in attendance with that invisible voice that no one knew where it was coming from. After these terrible events, the witch declared she was finally leaving, as she considered her objective fulfilled, promising to return in 1828, a promise she ultimately kept. And more than a threat, she offered a prophecy of what was to come.
The United States would face a great war. The humanity would undergo a moral crisis, and a spiritual awakening would be necessary for significant future changes.
And promising to return in 107 years. Did John do something to anger her and deserve such a terrible fate? Why is that? In some way, she remains in my family? Could it be that she managed to return in 1935? Could it be that she continues to torment us and her prophecy comes true? Only time will tell.
Knows the emptiness and fear left behind when someone leaves this world so suddenly. I'm from Mishka, and I'm afraid my fiance will do the same to me. Here in Mishka, there is a story, or rather a legend, about how death can return to take us with them. A long time ago, the local deacon, whose name no one remembers, had a girlfriend named Gatran, who lived in Baksa, on the other side of the Hokgar River. He decided to visit her to invite her to spend Christmas Eve together. He crossed the frozen river on his way back, but the ice began to crack, and although he did his best not to fall, he couldn't manage it. The next morning, a neighbor saw Faxi when wet and shivering. Upon recognizing him, the neighbor went to the river bank and found the neighbor went to the river bank and found the deacon dead, with a wound on the back of his neck caused by the ice, and he showed no signs of life. They sent word to Mishka and buried him at the vicarage. But since the river had twinned, they had no way to notify Gotron. They agreed upon they arrived. Gotron was anxious, waiting for her beloved to arrive. Even though he was covered, she knew it was him. Given her beloved's usual haste, Gotron put on her coat, but just one sleeve. She climbed onto the horse and noticed something strange. Her beloved was cold and extremely quiet. She assumed that riding so late and over such rugged terrain had forced him into this state. As they leaped over a hill, Gotron caught a glimpse of the back of her beloved's neck and saw something that made her blood run cold. A wound, barely visible in the darkness, but there it was.
The moon fades, death rides. Don't you see a white spot on the back of my head? Garn, Garn?
My beloved, answer me. Tell me, why do you call me Garon when my name is Gotron? Gotron? He didn't answer. Her blood ran cold and she didn't know what to think. She realized she had to do something about it, that she had to find a way to escape. When they reached Mishka, he spoke again.
Wait here, Garn, Garn, while I take Foxy, outside the cemetery fence.
Now, It all made sense. He was no longer her boyfriend. He no longer belonged to the realm of the living. As she recalled, the dead who rise from their graves cannot utter the name of God, or any names derived from it, such as her own. Not to mention that he wanted to take her to the grave with him. As she dismounted the horse, she began to run away. He grabbed her by the sleeve to stop her, but he had grabbed the sleeve she hadn't managed to pull on yet, causing her to slip and fall into a grave. Seizing the opportunity to escape, she ran with all her might to the bell, ringing it and calling out to all the neighbors for help. They learned what had happened and confirmed her suspicions. He had passed away. No one slept that night. She took refuge on the farm. She couldn't live there or stay alone. They knew he would come out at night, and so it was. As the sun set, the Deacon returned. A neighbor managed to contact a sorcerer who, upon arriving, sought out a large boulder, uprooted it, and as night fell, placed it in the grave along with some prayers so that it would remain fixed and he could not escape. The Deacon was finally able to rest in peace. That torment lasted 2 weeks. Gudrun was unable to recover from such torture and lost her sanity. As for me, I've just lost him. I lost my fiancé. I received the news only a few hours ago. We were hoping to go out tonight, and now I see him knocking on my door.
I'm here, my darling. Darling, when will you open the door to be with me? My love. Love?